Well, hi, Allison, and welcome to the Rebuilding My Health Radio podcast. I am thrilled to have you join me today to talk about your personal health journey and what you've learned along the way.
Thank you so much for having me, Casey.
Yeah, absolutely. Your story just really sort of touched me in that it's so common, and some of the answers that you found were actually surprisingly simple. So yeah, but let's kind of go back to when you started having some health struggles, which kind of started relatively early in your life. Like, what were you experiencing, and what did it look like for you?
Yeah, everything started in my early 20s. I I started developing chronic pain. I did have injuries. So a lot of people want to attribute it to some kind of triggering event. And there was, I would say, triggering event. I had a ski injury where I think an original tear began. I was on a mountain, stopped on a mountain, and some guy came kamikaze down the mountain, hit me. Ski
Oh
went one
no.
way, knee went the other. And so that was in college. And that was really painful, but I recovered as you do. You recover. It was sprained, it was
Mhm.
whatever. It was probably torn then, but we didn't investigate that because I recovered. And then the following summer, I ran a race. I always thought of myself as a health enthusiast, even though I didn't know what I was doing. I just was, following all the things, and I like to be active. And so I ran a race. I ran a 5K, and I waitressed at night. And so I got up early, ran the race, and then took a nap and woke up, and I was limping. And I was like, oh, I must have done something during the race. And it may have been that whatever happened from the ski injury was then re-injured, or I twisted it running. But this time I wasn't recovering, and
Mm.
I was limping way more than I should for somebody so active and so young. And it just progressed throughout my body over time. And I had gone to an orthopedist, and what he said to me was, "You're young, you're athletic, you're fine." The expectation that I'm just going to recover, and that people who are athletic, they get injuries, you get sports injuries, and then you ice it and you're all better. Take some Advil and you're fine. I knew this didn't feel fine. This was a different kind of ouchie. And then, so it was in my knees, and it got to the point eventually that it hurt to sit down to go to the bathroom. It hurt to stand up. So thankfully at work, they have those grab bars, and I had to hoist myself up. Stairs. I was in New York City at the time, and everything is up and down stairs. Everything. And it was becoming excruciating. And so here's how it changed. It became both knees, and I had numbness in my feet and in my butt. So it was a dull pain. So where the knees were sharp pain, like, oh, where I felt like my leg would break in half, like in the night, it would wake me up sometimes. So it would swell. And if I bent my knee in the night, it would wake me up. But sitting was really uncomfortable. It was more of a dull ache, like it was numb. And it was so uncomfortable. And I just remember always like shifting around in my seat and trying to find my foot on the ground. And the work got me a footstool, and I had to get a special chair, a really nice ergonomic chair. That was when I first learned the word ergonomic. And I was like, well, this is fabulous because it supported me properly, but that didn't solve the problem. It just helped ease
Mhm.
my pain. That was pain management, but it wasn't solving anything. I also had frequent migraines, but everybody has migraines, or lots of people have migraines. I wasn't seeing at the time that all of these pains that they're just kept stacking on top of each other with no abatement, it's all normal because people have aches and pains. They wear
Mhm.
braces, they take Advil, they do all of these things. And
Mhm.
I was looking for somebody to tell me, okay, what's wrong? Because it just kept progressing. And so I thought maybe it's some kind of autoimmune. And they started thinking about lupus. Maybe it's lupus. Maybe it's fibromyalgia. Like, I also had Raynaud's, so my fingers would turn white. And So there really wasn't, that was just the beginning, and there wasn't really any answers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so frustrating. Yeah, and
So
especially when
frustrating.
it's, it's progressing and pain is showing up in new places and you're in your 20s. I mean, this
20s.
is, yeah, not supposed to happen.
No. And
Um,
actually at the same, I was already seeing a neurologist at this time for chronic pain. And it was helpful. Again, it was pain management. It wasn't solving the problem. It wasn't honestly looking for any root cause. It was just pain management. And that was what he specialized
mhm,
in. And he was good at that. But at that time, my father, at 50 years old, died suddenly
mm,
at this very same time. And so people will always, when I was going through all of this, and they're always looking for, you had an accident, you had an injury. Oh, maybe it was the death of your dad. Like, no, this all started before. If it started
mhm.
before he took me on the day he died, he took me to the neurologist appointment in the morning before I went to work.
Wow.
But all of that together really plays on your mental health, because
Mhm.
the stress of the pain, the agony of the pain, the agony of the loss, the depression, the fear, maybe because it was such a shock when he
Mhm.
died. He looked the picture of health. He did not look like somebody who would just die suddenly at 50 years old. He was muscular,
Yeah.
active, and all of that. And I thought that's what I was, but here I am limping along. And so I'm having, panic attacks at 25, thinking my life is half over. I This is something my dad probably had, and we missed all those signs. And so
Mm.
that's where you start to go when there's no relief and it just keeps going. Uh,
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was in my 20s.
Right, right. Yeah, and I'm sure losing hope because you were not finding solutions, you were just maybe kind of trying to numb the pain. Like were you taking painkillers or kind of what were you saw a neurologist, what were you doing to sort of
Yeah,
manage
I
that?
was taking painkillers. I was taking it's now escaping me, but basically it was, starts with a P. It was eventually recalled for causing heart attacks in men.
Oh, wow.
And I did not want to give it up because it helped me not have pain in my knees. It was the only thing. The neurologist I was seeing, he did acupuncture. He introduced me to acupuncture. And so that was wonderful, but it didn't help my knees. I think it
Mm,
helped depression. That's not what I was seeing him for. But after my dad died, he's like, let me put some needles in your head. Let me do some
mhm,
here in your chest. Um, and so I think it probably helped with that. And it helped with, like, my whole body would lock up. I would get like, uh, I would freeze here. I'm blanking on what it was, like where I would throw out my neck. I would throw out my, like, it would just, all of these ridiculous things for somebody, again, young and active. And so I was on medication for the knee. I don't know why I can't think of the name, with a P, but it was recalled. And I took Imitrex for migraines. I
mhm,
had medication.
mhm,
So yeah, I had
mhm.
medication. So I was fine, right? I had
Yeah.
hormone imbalance. So I was on the pill. I was
Mhm.
fine, right? I had all of the tools. I had medication
Right.
to help me numb the pain,
Mhm.
is really what it did.
Right.
Mask the pain, mask the symptoms.
Mhm. Right, right. Yeah, exactly. So, I guess at what point did kind of start finding solutions beyond numbing and pain management? And how? Like,
It was 10 years. So
it was
10 years, because I went to everybody. I went to the neurologist, I went to the orthopedist, I went for Reiki, I went to
Mhm,
chiropractic, I went to physical therapist. I did it all. And it wasn't until I went to anybody who said, go to this person, try this, try this, try this. I tried homeopathics, I tried every lotion and potion. And then finally, one guy who I limped into his office, and he said, "Hi, Allison. My name is Andy. I hope to never see you again." And I was like, "Okay, that's awesome," because everybody else is telling me to come back next week, right?
right. Yeah.
And he said, he actually asked me what did I have for breakfast? And I was like, well, I don't know why you're asking, but I had a bowl of cereal. I think it was Special K. And I had a glass of orange juice and a multivitamin because I eat a good, healthy breakfast. I didn't realize that wasn't actually a very healthy breakfast at all. I had no idea, but I was following conventional wisdom that a good fiber cereal and low fat milk and orange juice for my vitamin C and a multivitamin, wash it down. And he's like, well, why are you drinking orange juice? Like, because of the vitamin C? Like, why is he asking me these crazy questions? And he's like, well, why orange juice? Why not eat an orange? And I was like, well, I don't like oranges. I don't like orange juice, by the way. I was doing it because it was instilled in me that that's part of a healthy breakfast.
Yeah.
And he's like, why don't you have broccoli, eat strawberries, like get your vitamin C elsewhere? And I was like, I could do that? I don't have to have orange juice? It never occurred to me. He's like, well, it's all sugar. Okay. He was the first person to introduce me to this crazy newfangled concept called nutrition that nobody had ever asked me about what I was eating. And he demonstrated to me how sugar responded in my body. And in fact, I would dare to say everybody's body, right? And showed me how he did some muscle testing, but showing me how even sugar on my leg, not even in my body, I was weak. I had no strength. And so imagine what it did in my body day after day, multiple times in the day. And that was like the big aha for me. Right. And I went there so that he could help me with my knee pain, which he did, doing a type of physical therapy, a muscle reactivation. That wasn't the cure, though. I really believe that the cure ultimately was this, oh my gosh, all of this time, I could have been changing my diet and lifestyle. I didn't know I needed to, because once I took the orange juice out, and that's not the cure either, but I didn't have pain the next day. And I was like, well, I think that's something. Who knew that it could be that easy? What else can I do? Can I take out this? Can I add in that? And it sort of became this game and also this obsession of like, wow, that doesn't hurt. I can have that and that doesn't hurt. And what else? What else can I do? And so that's how it started. But it took 10 years to meet somebody who even asked the question.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is crazy, which is so crazy. And it's so interesting, and I love when you first reached out to me and you were kind of sharing your story, you were like, why doesn't anybody know about this? Like, it is so underrated. Nutrition is so underrated. I mean, we hear it over and over again, you are what you eat, but I don't think people really understand that on a meal to meal basis, like you can make these choices that are going to change how, you feel. And one other thing, I also don't think people understand the connection between pain and what they eat. Like my 30-year-old ankle injury stopped hurting when I stopped eating gluten. Like, people do not connect like food with that kind of pain or, arthritis or whatever. So, it's powerful, so powerful.
It makes no sense if you think about it. Why wouldn't food affect how you feel in your body? Because that's what your body runs on. And I always joke with my clients, it's not Dunkin'. That commercial, it's what you run on. Run on Dunkin'. It ain't Dunkin'. It's nutrients in food. And so you have to both have the nutrients, and then also your body has to know how to break it down and assimilate it. Because you could have the best diet. I've had that too. People like, I eat so well, I do all the things. And it's like, well, clearly there's compromised digestion here, because you are doing all of the things, but if you can't use it, you're malnourished. You're actually malnourished with a full healthy diet if this isn't working, because something
Mm.
along the way compromised your gut function. And it's a variety of things that can do that.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. 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 So important to have, yeah, not just a healthy diet, but right, your gut kind of in order so that you can digest and process all of it.
Yeah.
Well, I am curious, like what your diet looked like, what you settled on in terms of the diet that worked for you in reducing the inflammation that
Yeah.
you had in your body.
The first step for me was the sugar. I was a junkie. I call myself a reformed junkie. And I was an addict, and that was how I self-medicated. So that was where I got my energy from. I worked in television. That was my career, was in television and film production. Really long hours. It was awesome, so fun. It was my dream. That's what I went to school for. And it's hard. It's not easy. It looks all glamorous on screen, but behind the scenes, it's not. It's hard. And most people, they smoke, they drink a lot of coffee, they drink a lot of soda. I never did any of that. And so, because I'm a healthy person, right? But what I did was eat M&Ms and gummies, Swedish fish, just lots of gummies, lots of M&M, Skittles. That was my drug. And I thought it was okay because it was fat free.
Mhm.
And as long as it was fat free, I could have it. And as long as I worked out, I could have it. Wrong mentality. But that was the conventional wisdom at the time. You can have this. It's 150 calories, no fat. It's all chemical. It's
Yeah.
not something your body knows how to digest. It's all chemical and sugar. And so I was on this blood sugar roller coaster. And so when I took that out, that was hugely powerful for me. Big changes. It was 10 years of suffering, and then probably another 5 years of dialing it all in. Because then I was like, okay, people are starting to ask me about how come you have so much energy and are not eating like they do. Because at this point, I moved to California. I'm still working in television, but people are asking me, the crew is asking me, the actors are asking me, like, how do you have so much energy? And how come you're not eating that? And can you help me? And so I sort of became like an unofficial health coach on the sets that I worked on. And then I was like, okay, I think I need to go back to school. I think maybe I'm supposed to be doing something else. It was helping me to kind of understand what happened with my dad. And maybe I'm supposed to help people to not have this pain and suffering, to not die young. And I went back to school, and through that, then I started experimenting with different diets and maybe I should go full fat dairy. Maybe I should go raw dairy. I was a big dairy person. That was huge. I grew up on drinking milk. I was an adult on my own, one person, and I was still buying a gallon of milk. That's how much milk I would drink.
Wow.
That was my also. And I never connected that role, how it was impacting my hormones, how it was impacting my digestion. Never had any thought, because I was on it for my whole life. And nobody once said, hey, maybe if you don't want to have all that acne that you had when you were a teenager. And then once I went on the pill, that sort of took care of that. But all it did was mask it. So it wasn't solving the problem. And take out dairy, and oh my gosh, PMS symptoms go away, acne went away. What? What do you mean? Right? All of these things that I just thought were part of a good, healthy diet, because that's how I was raised. Dairy does the body good.
Does the
Right?
body
Drink
good,
your
yeah.
orange juice. Right? A good old
And your
American
milk.
breakfast. Yes.
Yeah.
And so systematically I was changing things, still having gluten. Even after going to school, but I would experiment with different things. How do I feel? Oh yeah, gluten actually is really inflammatory, just as inflammatory as dairy. Maybe I should take it out. And so I would experiment with that, but I would cheat, because I don't have a gluten problem. It's fine. I don't have to. Until later, I tested. Because I became a functional nutritionist and I'm into functional testing, and I tested and I was like, what? What do you mean I'm gluten insensitive? What do you mean? And because I didn't, so when I had constipation when I was in my 20s, that was because I had a poor diet. Poor diet,
Mhm.
little sleep, lots of sugar. After I took those out, I had a more of a regular digestive system in terms of bowel movements. And so I never thought that I had a gluten problem because I didn't have bloating, gas, indigestion, constipation, diarrhea, anything like that. I don't have a gluten problem. Oh, well, guess
Mhm.
what? Gluten sensitivity, any sensitivity can manifest in different ways in different people.
Mhm.
So, can it trigger migraines? Uh huh. Can dairy trigger migraines? Uh huh. Right. I used to cheat with dairy too. Cheat with, have ice cream. I don't drink milk, but I'll have ice cream, the good kind.
Right.
Right. It's organic,
Yeah.
so it's okay.
Right.
And so what I learned is that all of these inflammatory foods were actually just triggering all of those things that I had thought I left behind.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
all that to say, you can still have really yummy things and ice cream
Mhm.
without the added inflammation, the inflammatory foods, the main inflammatory foods that were actually compromising my digestion, my hormone balance, my neurological function, my joint pain, like all of
Mhm. Yeah.
it. That's a
Right.
nutshell.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There are substitutions and you can find delicious things without the big inflammatory foods for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you were cutting gluten and dairy. Did you go like more grain free as well, or just more like whole foods without gluten, dairy, etc.?
I I was moving more toward whole foods because
Mm-hmm.
when I had a busy production life and I was single and I ate like a bachelor. And so I ate a lot of frozen meals, and not to say that there aren't some good kinds of frozen, but I was looking at things more, I was having like lean cuisines and smart ones and really
Mm-hmm.
looking at calories and not looking at ingredients and how much additives, preservatives do the same. They're inflammatory in the body
Hmm.
and they're harder to digest. I thought it was just easy because it was fast food. It was healthy fast food. Well, now I know you can still have healthy fast food, but it is more whole food. And what I found is that my energy changed. I had more energy. I
Hmm.
still don't drink coffee. I still don't drink soda, but I am able to sustain long days without the need for any of that stuff and have regular bowel movements and not have any pain that I had in my 20s. I'm in my 40s now and I don't have any of that I had in my 20s when I felt like an
Wow.
80-year-old. And so
Yeah.
I find that really encouraging that
Yes.
we can not only recover, but completely course correct
Hmm.
and feel better even though we're getting older,
Yeah. Yeah, the
right?
body is really resilient, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's what I've seen over and over is like you make these changes and you thought you were on this like path that was, all downhill like, oh, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse as I get older and there's nothing I can do. It's a one-way street. Yeah, it's powerful to
Yeah.
see these, see the changes as you're making these changes. And it's I think it like, at least my own experience, it like it spurs me on like, oh yeah, like you said, what else can I do to
Yeah.
get even better, to feel even better? So
Yeah.
yeah, well, you mentioned earlier that you have, with clients have needed to help them digest better. Did you find that with yourself as well, that you needed to do some gut healing?
I didn't think so until I tested and found out that well, here's what happened. Uh, I had been on this journey and everything was all really good. And so much so that I was so busy in my 20s being sick and in my 30s being healthy and getting healthy and being in school and then pivoting and starting a whole new career that I looked at the clock and went, oh my gosh, I forgot to have a baby. Like, shoot, we got to do that. And so then it became all, okay, what do we have to do that? Because I had been on the pill for I actually don't even know the math. 17 years, something like that. 15
Yeah.
years, 18, something like that. 19 to 35. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't think I'm supposed to be on the pill anymore. And I knew that I wanted to have kids, but not right then and there. And so I thought, I wonder what will happen. I should probably stop this. And I remember when I was in my 20s and I asked, like, hey, should I go off? Like, should I be on it for so long? And my doctor at the time said, well, your body's going to do what your body does. So if you go off, you're just going to continue to not get your period. That's why I was on the pill. The acne clear up was just a benefit, a side benefit, but I wasn't getting my period when I was 19, 20 years old. And that was because I had a crappy diet. That's why. That's really why. And I didn't know that. And so you go on the pill. And I was like, well, great, because I don't want to get pregnant. So that's awesome too. And no pimples. My skin looks good. I'm not going to get pregnant. This is awesome. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be. And so, but so a couple of times in my 20s, I went off, and sure enough, I didn't get my period. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I need to be on the pill. Never thought any deeper than that. And so at 35, I was like, well, I'm going to go off the pill. I'd already been for at least 5 years on this cleaning up diet and changing everything and experimenting with everything, what's right for me, that I ovulated however many weeks later and like got my period a month later. But the first time I ovulated, I was so painfully aware of it because it was like the first time that I truly ovulated because I was suppressing that for so long. It was so painful, so painful.
Wow.
But apparently it's textbook. That's what happens after coming off the pill. And I was so pleasantly surprised that I was regular every month after that. And I was like, that's something, because they call you geriatric if you are over 35, right? It's all downhill from there. You're 35, it's over. Send her out to pasture.
Right. And you're high risk and
yes. And so I didn't have any of that. And I'm like, this is awesome. I think this is a really good sign. I'm doing good work. I'm actually able to do all of the things I couldn't do. They told me I would never run again. They told me I could never be off of the pill. Not on the pill, able to run up and down stairs. I don't have any joint pain. I'm not on any medication. And so now 40, going, oh, okay, well, we forgot to do this. So let's just make sure everything is all clean. And so I really just upped things, upped the whole foods, upped the smoothies, and made sure that my husband was doing all of that stuff because it takes two. And so making sure that he was super clean and everything, and environmentally super clean, and avoiding toxins and endocrine disruptors, and really, really educating myself. I ended up getting certified in environmental health. And so I was doing all of the things. And 3 months into trying, I got pregnant. And I was like, well, ain't that something? Who knew that like your body can keep getting better? It can keep getting better, because I will tell you, when I was 25, I thought my life was over. Like, this is done. I didn't have any hope. I was really, really sad. And I couldn't see what I couldn't see.
Yeah.
That there was anything that I could do that was within my power. I was waiting for somebody to come and save me and fix me. And then I ended up having an ideal pregnancy. Everything was perfect. And even though I was high risk, advanced maternal age, I didn't have any of the issues. And I asked, I even did a home birth. And my friends were like, are you crazy? You know how old you are. And I asked my midwife, I said, is that a problem? And she said, well, getting pregnant is the hard part. You did that. The birth, it doesn't matter how old you are, like, you're fine. And I was like, okay. So
Awesome. Wow. And you had your baby at 42, right? Is that,
did.
yeah,
Did.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's just really like just breathtaking to like hear that journey, from thinking, life is over, or at least quality of life is over in your mid 20s,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
being like so much better in 20 years later than you were then,
Yeah.
energy wise, without pain, hormones balance, no migraines, good
Yeah.
digestion, like
Yeah.
all the things are just humming along as they should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Um,
you asked
and
about
it,
digestion. Did I need
yeah,
to I went off on a tangent to set it up. Did you
yeah,
want to still hear about
sure,
the
yeah. Tell
digest?
me, yeah. Did you
I
need to do some of that?
I didn't, but I did after,
Mm-hmm.
because pregnancy is a trigger. It's a trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even the most perfect, it
Yep.
still is a hormonal cascade. And what happened after my son was born, there was pandemic. I had elderly cats. And so my baby's getting bigger and stronger, and my cats are getting smaller and weaker. And so
Yeah.
it all kind of happened at the same time. It was just trauma, trauma, trauma. And this whole year of trying to, like being a new mom and trying to save my cats. And I was so happy to have like all my babies together. And then it was a lot. It was very traumatic. And then pandemic, and we're on lockdown, and like, oh, and I started having hormonal imbalance. Well, what I suspected was hormonal imbalance, because I started getting belly fat that I didn't have pre-pregnancy. I didn't have post-pregnancy. Like I got back in, that's another thing. I got back into, I didn't know that would happen, but I got back into my pre-pregnancy body within 9 months. I guess it took 9 months, and I was back into everything. And I thought that was really fair and good. But then the next year, belly fat started creeping up, and I wasn't doing anything different. And so what I realized, and I did some functional testing and realized, oh my gosh, I had a little bit of a leaky gut situation. And I think it was because of all of the various traumas, because
Mm-hmm.
that is a trigger. And I had a 1-2 punch all in a row. And so then I had to do some cleanup. I had to do some
Right.
healing and sealing. Right. But
Mm-hmm.
prior to that, and I guess that's the thing, is when you have chronic illness and you can recover from it. And that's not to say that other things won't happen, because you keep living and life keeps happening, but you then have tools and you know what to do. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I think this is hormonal. What do I have to do? And that's where I discovered about the gluten. And I was like, oh, mommy shouldn't cheat anymore, huh? Because
Right.
that was a contributing factor, and I didn't think it applied to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Humbling.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. I hear you. I've been there. And if I have gluten, all the old injuries are going to hurt again the next day and for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
super interesting. It's like a really fast feedback loop.
Yes.
Um, so I get this question a lot. People say, okay, I know I need to change my diet, but I don't really know where to start or what the right one
Yeah.
is for me, because there's so much out there right now. There's, Whole30, there's,
Mhm.
all different forms of paleo and whole foods and keto. And, so where do you recommend people start with diet?
So I definitely don't subscribe to any one diet or dietary theory. I am trained in 100 of them, and they're
Mhm.
all right, but they're not right for everybody. And I get a lot of clients who come in with intermittent fasting, and like, this is the way. Yet they're chronically ill. Yet they have hormonal imbalance. Yet they have a lot of digestive issues. They have poor sleep. They have all of this stuff. And it's like, let's put that aside for now. It's not that there's not benefits to it. It's not for you right now. We have to get your hormone
Mhm.
balanced. And so where do we start is we have to make sure that you are pooping. got to make sure that you're pooping. We got to make sure that you're sleeping. And we got to make sure that you have blood sugar balance. And it's like those three things. And so it doesn't matter what diet you're on. If those things are not happening, we're going to back it up and start making sure that we make those things happen. And so that might mean taking you off your keto, taking you off your intermittent fasting, taking you off whatever autoimmune, paleo, whatever, like all of these restrictive diets. Again, there's benefits to them, and for certain conditions can be really helpful, and for certain people really helpful. But a lot of these restrictive diets are meant to be therapeutic, short term. And I get people who are on them for 2 years. It's supposed to be 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let's put that aside for right now. We have some work to do. We have to shift this terrain, optimize what's happening here so that we get those three things happening. And then we can, down the road, maybe we can revisit that because you liked it. But then they find, wow, I'm actually eating more than I ever have, and I lost 10 pounds. Or, ow, I'm actually pooping, I'm sleeping better than I ever have. Oh, wow. Like I just heard the other day, I can wear contact lenses again because she didn't have inflammation. Her eyes were not dry and inflamed. She didn't come to me for eyes. That was just an added benefit of reducing the inflammation in her body.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I love those stories of the surprising things that get better with making these lifestyle changes. Yeah. Because it all seems to go back to inflammation and how that presents in the body. Yeah. So do you recommend like food sensitivity testing with folks, or more like just kind of trial and error?
At first, it's a little bit trial and error at first. Basically, if you're having any of the main inflammatory foods like we've been talking about, like gluten, dairy, sugar, I'm going to ask that you take them out. If you're relying on them, if they're in your diet, we're going to take them out because we know for a fact they are inflammatory. Are they okay time to time? For some people, yes. I've learned not for me and not for a lot of people, actually. But if you don't have hormonal imbalance, if you don't have poor digestion, you don't have autoimmune, maybe you can have them from time to time. Not so much the sugar, but the gluten and dairy. Because everybody's like, well, my cousin, has this, and we own a restaurant, and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, I know. But if you have any of those things, take them out. I promise you, take them out, and your pain's going to start to go away. Your head's going to clear. Your stamina will be there. All of these things. And so those I will recommend to take out. And then it's more about adding in. And to answer your question, yes, I do food sensitivity testing, but it's more like and I've definitely been through lots of different tests, and there's some really good ones out there, and there's some really not good ones out there. But we don't start there because people like to rely on a piece of paper. And what I want to look at is context. So let's see, what are you doing? Who are you? Who is this person sitting in front of me? How are you eating? What's happening in your life? What is your health history? What are your genetics? We let that inform what we're doing at first, and then we bring in the testing to confirm what we already suspect. I think there might be some, because you're eating really clean, we're doing all of this, and you're still having this inflammation, I think there might be something that your body doesn't like, you're having an immune response to. We'll bring that in, but also still looking through the lens of context, their current situation, their health history, their genetics, and not just looking in isolation at a piece of paper that says, oh, that's red, oh, that's green, because they can come back with like 30 things that are red, and they're like, oh, I can't, it could do more harm than good. And so we have to get into a good place. And then, yes, I will bring them in, because it can be very eye-opening and really relieve a lot of symptoms by taking some food out, hopefully temporarily.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense to, kind of do the foundational things, the, biggest offenders, and when you feel like you need to bring in some additional testing. For For sure. Yeah. Well, Allie, what would you say, or maybe share one action for listeners that they can take, in the short term to, start shifting their health to start feeling better?
I would probably say that they need to, you don't know what you don't know, and we want data. And data doesn't have to come in a big, expensive functional test because they're not cheap. They are effective, but they're not cheap. And you don't have to start there. And to get data, get insight into yourself, I like to do what's called a food, mood, poop journal. And
Mhm.
so you're going to track not just what you're eating, but I do want to know everything that you're eating and drinking
Mhm.
and how you're feeling. So, how are you feeling that day, around the time that you're eating? You know, did you have a funeral? Was there a death in the family? I'm feeling really sad,
Mhm.
and you're eating, or you don't have an appetite because you're feeling really sad, or you're eating under duress, or you had a fight, or you got laid off, or you're having the best day ever, but you still
Mhm.
also feel tired. Okay, like mood really plays a role in how we digest and um, how our energy is in the day. So mood is really important. People often overlook that. And then also poop. What time did you poop? And so time is also important. So timing of eating, when did you have these mood changes, positive or negative? Are you fatigued? Are you feeling anxious? And then how are you pooping? Are you
Mhm.
pooping? How many times? What does it look like? I do want to know what it looks like. I don't need to see a picture, but just describe it. There's something called a Bristol stool scale. Will tell you like here's constipated, all a spectrum of constipation to diarrhea and everything in between. And so that's really helpful. And whether you're working with me or another practitioner, or you're just doing it for yourself, it really gives you insight into what you're eating because you forget what we ate yesterday, what we ate this morning. We forgot that we had those extra cookies or whatever it was. And if you're honest with yourself and you write something down and you track it, and then you can see, oh, patterns start to emerge. Oh, you know what?
Mhm.
I am constipated after I have dairy. I didn't
Mhm.
realize that. I thought I'm just having
Mhm.
a little bit in my coffee. And so that isn't an issue. But oh, I did have that cheese on that burger. Oh, right. And you start to see, because when you're in it, you can't see. But so it allows you to
Yeah.
step out of it, but also see those connections of how your body is responding to
Mm.
what you put in it and what you feed it all around you. And so I feel like that's a really great place to start and get insight into where you might need support.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that, and it's something personally that I have found super helpful. I don't track mood though. In mine, I've just
Mm.
tracked kind of food and symptoms and such. And so, the food mood poop, the sort of triad or whatever there
Yeah.
is really, yeah, is super helpful to pay attention to. But I will go back and be like, okay, the last time I had these same symptoms, what was going on? What was I eating, or was I doing something different?
Yeah.
And have been able to spot things. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely super helpful. Um, well, Allie, this has been so insightful, and I know it will inspire others and really sort of encourage folks to take a closer look at their diet and what they're doing and how that is affecting how they feel like on a daily basis. So, thank you for coming
You're
on and
very
sharing your
welcome.
story. So,
Yeah.
where
Thank
can
you so much.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So where can listeners learn more about you, find you, and follow you?
Yeah. So I am Health Allie on social media, Health ALLIE. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And I have a free gift for your listeners
Oh
if
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it took me 10 years to figure out what the heck was wrong with me without a diagnosis. What the heck is wrong? And then 5 years of like putting it all together, well, everything that I learned from all of that time. And So I have for you a chronic illness recovery roadmap. And so it's
Nice.
basically the 5 pillars of the things, and we kind of talked about them throughout this
Mhm.
conversation, the 5 pillars that need to happen for you to recover, relieve chronic illness. So whatever it is, and it just under that umbrella of chronic illness, if you're struggling with symptoms,
Mhm.
if you follow these steps under these pillars, you will find relief. It's the
Yeah,
beginning of
perfect.
the next chapter for you. And so you can go to AllisonSamon.com and get the roadmap.
Great. Yeah, yeah, that sounds like a huge resource. So, great. Well, Allie, thank you so much for sharing. I truly appreciate it, and I'm excited for folks to hear our conversation and yep, learn from your journey. So, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I hope that it's helpful and inspiring for someone out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was. I know it will reach those who need to hear it. So, so thank you.
Perfect.